you. Every year in the United States, nearly 44,000 people die of a drug overdose. That's an average of 120 deaths every single day. And the biggest cause of these deaths can be easily found in most people's medicine cabinets: prescription pain pills. And what you may not know is that these medications have now become a fun but extremely dangerous pastime for many of today's youth. It gets worse. When they can't find pain pills or that prescription bottle runs out, many of these teens are turning to a cheaper and far deadlier alternative: heroin. Now, heroin use spans across race, class, and gender. Honor students, all-star athletes, and others are becoming severely addicted. In fact, more people now die from drug overdoses than from car accidents or gun-related homicides. So what can you do to protect your own children from this growing epidemic? You'll find out next, right here on Your World.
Changing one life, time after time. Oh Lord, we do it all for you.
Through the trials I see, I'll always believe a new life starts with me. Yeah. Oh, change your world today. Change is gonna come your way. Change and get an understanding. His grace will transform you.
My first guest today lives in a community that loses hundreds of people each year to the drug epidemic. Her own story of drug addiction and tragic loss motivated her to take action and begin a community organization to help those struggling to get and stay clean. Her next step: stopping the drug abuse before it even begins. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Missy Owens to Your World today. Thank you so much for being here with us. God bless you. You may be seated. This is your world, so we want you to take us into your world. There are millions of people that are watching. You're literally the minister for today, because what you have to share with us is going to help a lot of people. It's going to get a lot of folks thinking about what they're doing. There are probably going to be people who are dealing with this, and together we're going to produce a program that's going to change a lot of lives. And so I'm grateful for what you're doing, and I'm grateful for the impact you have had thus far. But allow us to come into your world. Tell us about Davis, how he was as a child, as a teenager, and let's begin this journey today with that.
Davis was the second in a string of 5 children. We grew up in a Baptist home, and they were in Sunday school every single week. And he was the shy one, and I know that his friends won't believe that, as the friends that he had as he got older, because he was an entertainer too. He went on to become a very bright and giving human being. He was an honor student. He was a servant leader. He was part of the student government at his high school. He went on to become the junior class president and senior class president. He ended up in the Hall of Fame at his high school. He went on to the local college, and there he was getting ready to study business administration when the drug problem began, somewhere in between high school and college. And within 18 months to 2 years, he was gone.
As you describe his life and his talent, his intellect, his creativity, there's no way that you would have ever dreamed of in a million years that he would not be here today. When did you first notice the addiction?
There were some signs in his first year of college, he began isolating. We had a very close family. The entire family, we did everything together. When you have 5 children, there's just not room enough in a car to bring extra guests. So your children learn to get along and they enjoy each other's company. And so we traveled together, we did things together, and we had a very, very close family. When he began isolating, that was something that was foreign to our family. It was just different. And one Thanksgiving morning, I remember we were getting ready to go to my parents' home. We always took our shotguns and stuff to shoot, and Michael, my husband, was checking the guns, and the shotguns had been replaced with BB guns. And we knew then that it was a bigger problem than we had thought. He had pawned the guns, and they belonged to my dad. They were family heirlooms, if you will, that were being passed down through the generations. And when the guns were gone, we knew that's not Davis. Having no prior experience with drugs or addiction, we thought that, we would get him into rehab, we would get him help, we'd send him to a counselor. He was going to see a counselor one-on-one once a week, and we thought we were doing great. And little things began to continue. At the end of it, he was taking things out of other people's homes, prescription medication. He ended up with a choice: you can go to rehab, or you're not going to stay here anymore. This can no longer be your home. He chose rehab, and we were so excited because we thought, oh, finally, we're going to rehab. This is it. This is where it ends up. This is great.
Yeah, so hopeful,
So hopeful.
Yeah.
About 3.5 weeks later, he's done with rehab. Insurance has paid all they're going to pay. And they said, we've done everything we can do for him, and come and pick him up. And I thought, oh, thank God, this chapter of our lives is over, that we can close this, we're done. And little did I know, I didn't know how much I didn't know.
As a parent, you've done everything that you knew to do. Everything was working like it was supposed to work. You're graduating from high school. You're getting into college. You're furthering your education. What happened? What was the turning point? We understand there may be pressures here, but how do we choose to handle those pressures? What have you been able to discover as a result of your experience to try to help answer some of those questions and enlighten people in areas where you were in the dark?
When you end up with a family member in addiction, there is such a process to following that child, chasing that child, that family member, whoever it may be, that you really don't have time to stop and learn at that point what you need to know to help the person. Because we were trying to find out who he was with, where he had gone, what he had been doing. You're always searching their rooms. There's always something to do immediately when you live with somebody who suffers with the disease of addiction. So it's too late at that point to really do your understanding and your due diligence to learn about the disease. You don't really learn about a disease until it affects you. But this disease, it's too late if you wait on that. My husband's a type 1 diabetic. He got really sick one summer, but we learned as he progressed how to take care of himself. This disease doesn't allow that. This is an unforgiving disease. And if you are not prepped and made aware of, as you said, about how this disease progresses and how it works before it strikes your family, you're already in a very, very inferior position to deal with it.
So what type of practical recommendations or advice you would give to a parent that he's watching this and he's saying, that sounds like my son? What advice would you give them to engage in right away to begin to get themselves in a position where they understand what they may be dealing with, or who do I call? Who do I go see? Give us some of that practical.
What we found, and this is a lot through the center that we opened that I think we're going to talk about later,
Yes.
but one of the things that we found out is you need to connect with people who have been through this process, because they're the people that can tell you the best information. They can give you the best advice, as you say. Peer support is people who have been there, done that, who know the tricks, who know the excuses that are going to be given, the path that they were on before, and they can tell you how to get through it and how to come out on the other side of it.
You know, in this journey, I think it's so important for people to hear just what you went through. Take us into the place where it was his last day and how you used that pain to do what you're doing right now with this center that's helping people. And I'm always thinking what happens when that disease of addiction, I love how you say that, the disease of addiction, what happens when it brings about the tragedy?
Going back and looking over what happened that day, Davis was in a critical place, trying to stay in recovery. But when you are an opioid user, it is the most incredibly unforgiving drug that you can use because it calls your name forever. You look at Philip Seymour Hoffman, and 22 years later, this drug is still calling his name. So this drug just continues to call your name. The dealers continue to call your phone. So it's a fight, and it's a fight to the death. So he was getting ready to leave, and he had done what we had asked him to do for the day, and he had helped around the house and gotten some things done. And he told me he was going to try and catch a meeting. I was glad to hear that he wanted to catch a meeting, and I said, okay, take my phone, because his phone had been turned off. And that's another thing, that you get so many conflicting pieces of advice from rehab communities, from intensive outpatient communities, from the people who had the disease.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we were told was take his phone away, turn his phone off. So we did, but I didn't want him out at night without a way to call. Because when you cut those dealers off and you cut those people that he may have used with off, you're also cutting your family members off, and the people that you cry out to help for, you cut those off as well. So I would never say to cut somebody's phone off or to, take somebody's phone away, because that's their lifeline.
It's good.
He had my phone. After looking through the phone, we found out that he had reached out to several people to go to a meeting with him. Nobody could go to a meeting with him that day. So he was looking up meetings. He was actually on the NA website looking up meetings and where they were and who they were close to. And about the time he was doing that, a phone call came in. He had placed a phone call to the person prior to them calling him back, and that person was his dealer. There were about 5 or 6 phone calls back and forth, and he gave in and went and met the dealer at a local restaurant, picked up his drugs, and went out to the parking lot and never left the parking lot. And for 22 hours, he sat there, passed out, eventually dead. Nobody knocked on the window. Nobody went to see if he was okay. He sat in a strip mall parking lot for 22 hours, and nobody bothered him.
It says a lot about the times we're living in and the people that are living in this time. The motivation now to do what you're doing today and the passion that's invested in what you do. I see it clearly. I mean, I'm wanting to, in a sense, I want to get the devil back and everybody else with this. I want to use this to fuel something that I can do some good. Tell us about the center, what you guys are doing, your purpose. Take us down that line.
3 weeks after Davis died, we established the Davis Direction Foundation.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Wow.
It was a calling.
Yeah.
As the family and everybody in the family was on board, we knew we had to do something because what happened to our family should not have happened, and we didn't want it to happen to anybody else's family. And I was the logical person to run the foundation. The kids were still in school. My husband was working, providing for the family, so I was the logical one to run the foundation. So we started collecting money, not really knowing what to do with them, but praying all the time that God would lead us, guide us, and direct us. And we just kept funneling the money into an account. And it became very clear that after the research that we had done, and you have to understand, I started writing a book. I wasn't writing a book at the time, I was writing my thoughts into a journal. And for 365 days, I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I never missed a day, and I wrote and just had my time with God and asked God to teach me what I needed to know. That later became the book that I wrote, and it was just researching and learning, and it took that amount of time for me to learn enough to be able to do what God was calling me to do. And I remember telling my daughter one day, I said, I just don't feel like I'm capable of doing what God's asking me to do. I don't feel like I'm capable of being a CEO. And she looked right at me and never hesitated, and she says, Mama, God doesn't call the qualified.
You better come on.
He qualifies the called.
Excuse me for almost shouting, but he never calls somebody that's qualified.
No.
He always qualifies you as a result of the call that's on your life and the training that you got every morning at 4 something in the morning. And that's just this God-given wisdom that grace has made available to you. And I am so grateful that in the earth there is a center available that understands this disease of addiction, and it has the stamp of God's wisdom on it so that it can get to the very nitty-gritty of the issue. And I got chill bumps just thinking about what you just said. The issue of heroin, how do y'all deal with that?
Well, heroin is almost old news now, if you want to know the truth, because heroin has gone on to become fentanyl and carfentanil, and although it's all morphine derivatives, you know, it's just something stronger and more intense and one thing after another. But the way that we deal with it is still, we're trying to educate the community, and what we've found out is that you can't just educate the faith-based community and decide that's all we need. You've got to educate the doctors and the medical community, the teachers and the school community, the corporate community, the faith-based community. Everybody has to be, law enforcement everybody has to be educated and on the same page. And that was one thing that we did very quickly from the beginning. We pulled everybody together and said, you know, our community is sick. And it's going to take everybody in our community to make it well again. And we just began doing little by little. And if somebody called and said, can you come and speak to our 10 people at the table? Yes, we'll go. Can you come and speak to my grandmother? Yes, I'll come. Can you come to the Your World with Creflo show? Yes, and God just put these opportunities out one after another for us to be able to tell the community what we do and how we do it. And this coming September, we will host our first national conference, just 3.5 years.
That's awesome. That's amazing. That is the power of grace, because you ask yourself, what did I do to deserve to be able to do this? And it was God knowing all the time who you were, what he had put on the inside of you, calling you for a time such as this. And I love the systematic approach. People just don't understand that when you deal with a problem, you have to take all of these different sections and put them together. And it's kind of like a television system. It's just not the cameras, it's not just the producers, it's not just the editors, it's all of these things coming together. And that systematic approach begins to now deal with a problem that is something that so needs to be dealt with. You know, I'm sure our audience today, as you sit and you listen to this, you're probably thinking, you know, I really would like to know maybe the top 2 or 3 things that I need to be aware of.
Well, one of the main things is, you know how we trust our doctors. We go to the doctor's office and you hear what your doctor says and you walk out with that little white piece of paper. You go to the pharmacy and you go home, and I would not even ask how many people read the fine print of the package and contents in a prescription bag, because the answer is nobody. And what people don't understand about this opioid crisis is that the pharmaceuticals misled the doctors. So the doctors had no intention of passing out addictive pills, of course, but in 2012 there was enough prescriptions written in our nation that every man, woman, and child could have an opioid prescription.
Listen to that. Listen to that.
That was outrageous.
Yeah.
And still, that was 2012. Many of those prescriptions are still sitting in medicine cabinets throughout this nation. So if you can do one thing today, clean out your medicine cabinet. And if you have medication that you're using and that you need, put it under lock and key, because people don't understand how medicines react with each other, how one person's medication is based on the weight of that person, and giving it to another person would be absolutely the wrong dosage. So we need to put our medicine under lock and key, and parents need to ask questions at the doctor's office. Is this an addictive medication you're prescribing for my child? And if the answer is yes, I want to know what the alternatives are. And then the other thing that's very, very important to know, there was a study done in 2006. It was done by the Cochrane Collaboration, which is a world-renowned research company. 1 ibuprofen plus 1 extra strength acetaminophen, which is basically 1 Advil and 1 extra strength Tylenol, is by far a better pain relief than 1 10 milligram oxycodone.
Wow. Wow. That is so important to hear, that the level of trust you have for your doctor and not accepting the responsibility for yourself. You have to be responsible for your health. You have to be responsible for the things that are going on. And it's almost like when they have a call to bring all of the guns in and turn your guns, it's almost like we need to do the same thing where drugs are concerned. Clean your cabinet out and bring it here to this particular site so we can kind of help you understand that this is a serious issue. People are dying as a result of this. Those of you who are watching this broadcast right now, you have to accept the responsibility and to understand and to learn some of the things you need to learn and understand about this disease of addiction, so that you can operate in the preventive rather than having to ever go through the journey that was explained to us today. Don't you appreciate her testimony and what you're doing? This is just amazing. What Missy is doing to save the lives of addicts could be one of the keys to abolishing the drug epidemic across our country. Her dedication to healing these addicts is already making a lasting impact on her community. On the next episode of Your World, we're going to continue this discussion and meet 2 people who would not be alive today if it hadn't been for the Zone.
The next thing I know, I was addicted to the pain pills, and it really got a hold of me. I ended up resorting to the street version of heroin.
I started at a much younger age, 12, 13 years old. I used the needle for my first time when I was 15. Continued on all through high school, heroin and meth.
Everything was falling apart. My marriage started to crumble. I found myself incarcerated.
After that, I kind of went back to the same thing, what I always knew, running the streets, making plays, whatever it was.
We're also going to dive deeper into the signs you may be missing that indicate your own kids might be on the road to addiction. Don't miss this. I'll see you next week on Your World.
$23.5 million people are struggling with drug addiction in the world today. In 2014, over 7 million Americans battled this addictive spirit, and these statistics are growing at an alarming rate. Children as young as 12 years old are sneaking the painkillers sitting in your medicine cabinets, and the risk of overdose has doubled in the past 5 years. Missy experienced the effects of drugs through her son, who lived a happy life until his drug habit took his life. We all want to live a happy, healthy, successful life, but too often, under the surface, we struggle with addictions to drugs, money, sex, or even food. The spirits behind these substances attach themselves to us and keep us bound. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, you may feel like there's no way out. Even if you feel you've hit rock bottom, there's always hope. God has the keys to breaking the chains binding you to your past, your mistakes, and your addictions. It's time for you to join Him in the battle for your life. With your love gift of just $40, Creflo Dollar will send you his 4-CD series and mini book entitled The Art of Spiritual War. In this powerful series, you will learn how to fight the enemy and his nefarious tricks. Use the mini book as a guide for daily spiritual nourishment. You can defeat the enemy and be a conqueror. You will also receive an additional mini book titled Grace in Spiritual Warfare. Follow along as Creflo Dollar explains how the grace of God will help you receive your victory, even in the midst of your war. This mini book will also help you and your loved ones prepare to fight the spirits haunting you. The enemy will come after you when you least expect it, and you must be prepared. We are all created in God's image and have the ability to conquer this spiritual war. If you are battling the spirit of addiction for yourself or someone you love and want to know how to prevail, call us right now to purchase this amazing bundle. Your love gifts towards this ministry are not only helping you get what you need to fight the enemy and emerge victorious, your selfless support also helps Creflo Dollar and his team help others who are also struggling in the community and even worldwide. We need your help to touch the lives of others. Changing the world starts with you. And to show how much we really appreciate your support, we will also provide you with a free bonus, the uncut DVD of today's interview, along with your spiritual warfare bundle. So if you call now, you'll receive the mini book, the 4-CD series, The Art of Spiritual War, the Grace in Spiritual Warfare mini book, and the complete uncut DVD of today's interview for your love gift of only $40. Call now to start making an impact on yourself, your family, someone you love, or those in the world who also desperately need your help. Call now.
World Changers Bible School presents the PMP Bootcamp Workshop. The Project Management Professional, or PMP certification, is the profession's most globally recognized and respected credential based on the Project Management Institute's internationally proven and innovative practices. The 6-week boot camp workshop is facilitated by veteran PMP certified instructors. For more information and to register, go to worldchangersbibleschool.org or text PMP to 51555.
On Your World, you hear real stories from real people. Each guest receives a reminder of God's plan for good in their lives with the Grace Certificate. Today, you can receive your very own Grace Certificate. This certificate is an inspiring reminder that you are the righteousness of God. Simply go to yourworldwithcreflo.com now or text GRACE to 51555 and download your own certificate in minutes. Creflo Dollar Ministries is providing a new understanding of grace and empowering change in the lives of millions of people every day. Thank you, partners and friends. Your love and financial support makes it possible to bring this message into millions of homes all across the globe.